What do you think I'm drinking, Brent?
Fireball. It is Fireball, for real?
Fireball. For real?
Fireball.
Oh, yeah, it is, man. I thought this is episode 1. I've got to ring it in. I got to ring it in, baby. And
were you the first couple, because we have a joke about Fireball. So the first couple of drinks that you took, were you expecting me to call you on that?
No, well, I thought maybe it could happen, but I was more so thinking like, how long is it going to take until he's like, you drinking Fireball? That's more what Fireball. I was thinking. That's more what I was thinking. So.
Okay. So as you, familiarize yourself with real music, I want you to familiarize yourself with real alcohol.
Allegiance. All right. Yeah, that's fine.
Bourbon.
I respect bourbon.
So we're going to get you away from Fireball and into proper bourbon. Okay? No, that'll be part of the show. So at the very end of the show, you're going to report to me back on the different bourbons
I'm going to have a beard out to here. Yeah, that's it, man. You're going to make me a man by the end of this. That's great. Thanks. I appreciate that. My wife will appreciate that too. Brent, I'm really excited about this conversation today. We're going to talk about Aerosmith's Toys in the Attic. This is an album that I discovered through your podcast, No Sleep Till Sudbury, through one of your guests. I'd never heard it before. I'm in my early 30s, and I had never really gotten into Aerosmith before. So when I heard Toys in the Attic, when I heard Aerosmith, this was like, all right, you know what? I think it's time that I finally dipped my toe in the Aerosmith water. And man, this was a fun album to listen to and to be introduced to Aerosmith with. Can you tell me a little bit about the album from your perspective? Because there is an age difference between you and I'd love to get your perspective first on the album, kind of what it means to you, what it meant to the time it came out. Just how is that for a bit of a setup to get us into this? Yeah, that's great. Yeah. All right.
So you're 31 and I'm 32, and
yeah, oh, that's great, man.
Plus 20. That's great. So for me, the record, I just think it's cool that you discovered this. And I was saying to you when we recorded the podcast, we talked about this. Aerosmith was not even really, I didn't consider them my band, because when I was in high school, they were for kind of, the kids who were older than me. They were a 70s band. And, I said that, Guns N' Roses was like my Aerosmith almost, right? If you look at the genealogy of it. I almost learned Aerosmith backwards, because I listened to all the glam bands that they influenced, the hair bands like Guns N' Roses, Cinderella, Faster Pussycat, all the way down the line. And then I went to Aerosmith after that, when I was a little bit older and went to university. And so it was kind of backwards, but it was really funny because I heard Aerosmith in those bands.
Oh, wow.
And I heard those bands in Aerosmith when I finally got around to listening to, Toys in the Attic and Draw the Line and Rocks and Get Your Wings. So I think my real interest is talking to you about this record and kind of, getting your impression of it and how you perceive it versus, how I perceive it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this for me, I mean, this is about the music, really, like instrumentally. And that's kind of the way that I'm wired, is listening to, like, when I put on an album, like I'm kind of into it sonically first.
Mm-hmm.
How does it make me feel? And this is just like great rock and roll. This is just one of those songs. I put it on when I was driving, which might have been dangerous, because the minute that Toys in the Attic kicks in, my foot just hit the floor. So like that's what this album right off the hop did for me. Was it just got me jacked up, if you will. It was like, I want to put the windows down. I'd put the top down if I had a convertible, and just burn down the countryside.
So now let me ask you a question. So Toys in the Attic kicks off the record, right? It's a heavy tune. It's high octane. Round and Round is towards the end of the record. not one of your favorites at all. You don't like the tune.
I don't.
But for me, I don't know. They're kind of similar. Like, so what do you like? You know, Toys in the Attic, you like. Round and Round, you don't. Is Round and Round just too kind of plodding? Like, is it too?
It's too metal for me. If you like, okay. It's too kind of heavy, and I don't mind heavy, and I might not mind this song on another album, but I think it being on this album just throws me off. Like it's like it doesn't fit in here for me, because I just feel like you have all of these great songs. Like, I'm just gonna go through the list here. Like, Toys in the Attic's awesome. Uncle Salty is a great, good. Again, blues riff, and then Adam's Apple is my favorite song. That's my favorite song on the album. Nice. And then Walk This Way obviously is a classic Aerosmith tune, the one so many people know. And awesome big 10-inch record. So hang on, stop this. So big 10-inch record. You know that's a '50s cover, right? I do know that. Yeah, Bull Moose Jackson. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So for me, I know what they were trying to do there, but that tune doesn't really fit on the record for me. So two tunes don't fit for me. That's one of them. Yeah, it's you know what, interesting that you say that, because I feel like, because that's sort of like been their MO as well. Like even before with Train Kept a Rollin''s a cover song, right? They've kind of had they've had cover tunes on their previous albums, and I feel like rock and roll, especially with what like the Stones were doing and had been doing, was like putting a mix up of these albums, or of these types of songs on. So I felt like this one was okay. And now I'm getting picky, I guess. But I don't know. I didn't feel like I could see it standing out, but I think because it's more along the rock and roll, like, and I keep saying that, but you know, I just feel like it's it fits a little more. It always just kind of stuck out. And the reason why is because Aerosmith is kind of gritty and rude and, aggressive. Right. And just raw. And that is not a raw, it's kind of almost like a do. Yeah. It doesn't fit. It's not goody, but it's too saccharine. It's not raw. It fit, the message fit. I think Steven Tyler really liked singing about his big 10-inch record. The double entendre fits, because it's smart assy in the same way that Aerosmith is smart assy. But I guess that's the linkage, right? But musically, it just never really. It was always one of those songs that I just kind of skipped when I listened to the record. That's interesting, because I feel like now that I think more about even Uncle Salty, like that, it kind of falls into that realm with that song, a little along the same lines as that. So no, that's cool, man. It's interesting to hear that. Overall, I think I love the song, whether it was on this album or the next song. I love their version. It's a cool tune. And then Sweet Emotion comes after that. Yeah. Which, I mean, look, I know it's like, again, one of the more popular ones and ones that you'll hear more often than not, but it is a great song. A cool fact about that is that someone in the band, I think it was Steven Tyler, so Hamilton wrote that song, the bass player, Tom Hamilton. And, it starts out with that bass riff, the iconic bass riff, right? And I don't know what key it's in, but it's not E. So he played that for the band, and I think it was Steven Tyler who said, what we should do is drop that down to E, and we'll make it like this Zeppelin-y kind of really heavy tune. And Hamilton didn't want to do it. Interesting. And that's the version that you hear. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And it was a leftover riff as well. It was something that Hamilton had been playing back in high school. And then the producer of the album, Jack Douglas, was like, anybody got anything? Anybody got any spare riffs? That's right. Isn't that funny? I love those stories where, they're like, oh, we had one more song to write. Like, we could have put one more on the record. We didn't have enough material. And then Joe Elliott went away and wrote Pour Some Sugar on Me in 10 minutes. And it's like one of their biggest hits. It's just so ridiculous, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I find that with a lot of rock and roll songs, like even Life in the Fast Lane by the Eagles is a Joe Walsh. Like that's him. That was a warm up of his that he was doing. And I think Toys in the Attic was in the same way for Joe Perry. It was a warm up kind of riff that he was playing that they they turned and Steven Tyler just started saying toys, toys.
Yeah.
It's just awesome how these songs start.
And, sorry, another one you just reminded me, Sweet Child of Mine, was like this goofy little warm-up lick that Slash used to play in rehearsal just to warm his fingers up. And he thought it was funny because it sounded like a circus-y kind of do. And so Axl said, well, that might be something. And Slash started laughing and said, no, that's stupid. This is just it's a joke. It's jokey.
Come on.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a true story. Yeah.
Wow. Some of those stories, because even actually, sorry, and I kind of keep going backwards here, but I think it was a Walk This Way was... Steven Tyler had written it in his notebook, but then left the notebook in a cab.
Yeah,
and then
that's right.
and then like had to write it the same day in the stairwell, like just by memory. Like,
and then he forgot the paper, and he wrote the lyrics on the wall,
on the wall,
stairwell.
Yeah,
and then he went back and got paper and copied it down. Like it was just this huge, ridiculous story.
Yeah. There was they did a lot of drugs, didn't they?
And they were just getting started then.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things with Sweet Emotion, like just those cool things. And I talked to you about this. Was one of the other parts was the shaker at the, or the rattle at the beginning. The rattle breaks, and they left that in. And
that's cool.
Then the shaker is a sugar pack that Steven Tyler picked up and was just shaking it right next to the mic.
That stuff, that folklore is like, so I could talk about that stuff all night. I love those stories.
Right? Yeah. And like, real or not, no, I believe it. like that's the kind of, you know, that's
they have no reason to make that up.
No, not at all.
Right?
No. And then just to finish off, Sweet Emotion, the way that it changes near the end for the last, I guess maybe minute and a half, around the 3:40 mark is what I had written down here. It just kind of switches. It just kind of changes gears a bit and catches you. You're like, whoa, like where did that come from? And there's a lot about that song that is just really good.
Yeah, you wonder. I love stuff like that you know, you're not expecting it, right? And you wonder where it does come from.
Yeah.
I've always liked that. I like, you know, modulations and key changes and unexpected twists in songs, and that's definitely one of them.
And to completely just kind of veer off here as well is like when you see them live and then they come at you with something. I've never seen Aerosmith live, but I've seen bands do, you know, they play songs live and it's completely, they go off on these tangents and you're like, how do you practice that? Like, where does that come into your jam session to, you know, it's incredible.
I don't know if you practice that. I think I think that, Alex, I think that's a magical kind of thing. And Led Zeppelin were so great at that. If you watch those early Zeppelin shows from like the late 60s and early 70s, like they would just, I don't even know if they knew what they were doing. It was just they were just all intertwined with each other. They were just speaking this language. It was bizarre. Like they were, you see bands jam, right? But they're all looking at each other and counting and stuff like that. But Zeppelin never really did that. They just kind of spoke each other's language musically. It was really crazy.
Yeah, that's what I just feel that was happening back then, you know. And I don't know for sure, but I just think, like, you know, you think with the Hendrix experience, like how do those guys know? You know, they've got to just be going and riffing off of each other and coming back and knowing, you know, just by feel, like the Who just as well, you know, feel. Like, and the Doors, like these bands that would just go off, like
all feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why they stayed in bands with each other, because, you know, musicians would kind of play with each other and say, you know, there's no chemistry, or, you know, but when they found, and LA in the 80s was that, right? So people would come and say, okay, well, you know, I'm in 4 different bands, but they were trying to find the guys that they had chemistry with, that, you know, they could make it with. And that's in essence what Guns N' Roses was, is they kind of were the outcasts of all of these, you know, Poison type bands. But what they found was that kind of the commonality that they had was that kind of street urchin grit, right?
Yeah.
And they all felt that together.
Yeah. And I don't know, I was listening to your podcast and about Motley Crue as well, right? Just kind of about how Nikki Sixx was what was it him that was part of what was the band London? And then
See, for me, that's a lot different. He manufactured that band, right? So he was in a band called London with the guy named Lizzie Gray. And then he went out and he decided that he was going to kind of build a band. And so he got, so he started with Tommy Lee, this hotshot kid, 19 years old, used to break cymbals with sticks. Like, if you can imagine, he did cymbals. Do that. Yeah.
Didn't break the sticks. He broke the cymbals.
That's, yeah.
Wow.
So, and flashy and just a great, like, didn't even know how good he was, really, Tommy Lee, right?
Right.
19 years old. And then they got Tommy's friend, Vince Neil, right? Just because he looked good. Couldn't sing. He did a great Robin Zander. That's what Tommy Lee said. Did a great Robin Zander. He looks good. He's our front man, blonde. And then they got Mick Mars as kind of the anchor of the band. He was 30 when the other guys were 19 and 21. 30 years old. Imagine what that would be like.
I'm starting a rock band, baby. I'm getting it going. Brent.
He'd been around the world a bunch of times with a band called White Horse, I think it was. And he answered some ad. They were looking for a guitar player, experienced, right? He was not glammy, but they kind of gave him the Munster kind of makeover, and for Shout at the Devil, he's kind of scary looking. But he was so much older than the other guys, but he could play the guitar so well, right? And he kind of was like I said, he was the anchor in the band. Him and Tommy Lee, because Sixx could barely play the bass, and Vince, wasn't a singer. He just played one on CDs. That's how Motley Crue came together. That was not musicianship. That was not
right
chemistry. That was like him saying, okay, you need to look this way. You need to say this. You need to act this way. Now we're a band. And the music just kind of came after.
So after Sweet Emotion, we get to No More, No More.
What do you think of that?
I'm a big fan of the song. Sonically, just nice. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't have much of a deep dive into the song. I'm a big fan of it.
And a deep cut too, to a degree. Not,
yeah.
Not well known at all.
Never heard of it before hearing about it. So, yeah.
And we've talked about deep cuts. I'm a huge, like, Walk This Way, I could care less about.
Right.
Even Sweet Emotion, just because you've heard them so many times. But songs like No More, No More and Round and Adam's Apple, those are the songs that I look for. I want to pick those records up, and Stones records, Van Halen records, and find those songs, because those are the songs that I want to hear.
And now after No More, No More is Round and Round.
Mm-hmm.
And
your favorite?
Yeah, skip. No.
Oh, you can't skip. It's so good.
But again, like it's just placement, man. Like, again, maybe on another album. How do you go from No More, No More to, like,
I guess
No More to Round and Round? Like,
I think it's funny that perfectly fits on that record.
I do
you
too.
Think it's just completely out of place.
Yeah.
I think it's like perfectly, placed on that album.
Yeah, I guess I just not like. I need to understand the history a little bit more, and the time that the album came out, and again, what more the music was surrounding it at the time as well, to really, I think, maybe appreciate its place on the record.
Yeah. The next song, last one,
You See Me Crying.
That is a song that is completely out of place on Toys in the Attic, in my opinion. And people are going to throw rocks at me for that, I know. But
see,
it doesn't work on that record. And I don't know this to be true. I don't know if it is or not. But it's almost like Tyler went away and wrote that song and brought it to the band and said, I want to put this on the record. I can see Joe Perry going, no, I don't want that on there, right? It's a piano ballad. It's at the very end of the album, and it's got orchestration. There's complex drum parts to it that just aren't like standard Aerosmith fare. It's just it's a curiosity. It's really weird. And the funny story about that record, this is how out of it Steven Tyler and Joe Perry were, okay, with the drugs. So that album came out in 1975, Toys, right? 1984, when they were getting going again with Done with Mirrors, A DJ played on the radio, You See Me Crying. Tyler heard it and said to Perry, seriously, he said, holy fuck, that's a great song. We should cover that. And Perry looked at him and said, that's you idiot.
Yes.
He had no idea.
Unreal. Where was I? Singing the song. Yeah. That's wild.
That's a true story. Yeah.
That is insane. I was thinking, just how out of it they had to be for that. Well, see, man, yeah, that's interesting because, like, again, when I start thinking about those, that time and those, again, maybe I need to do more research. But I'm like, no, don't you need a ballad? Don't you need a ballad on a record like an album like this? And that's why I'm thinking, like, get rid of Round and Round and go from No More No More to You See Me Crying, and then you're good. Like that's like their perfect album. That even Liv Tyler, it's her favorite song. So Liv,
that's nice.
What up, Liv? So and I gotta say, like, I know that this was one of their more, like, well-known, I think one of, like, maybe their top albums now. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're gonna do a list of Aerosmith's albums, Toys in the Attic generally tops that list. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how well it did, like, in the year. And then I was looking at some of the albums that came out that year. That's a tough year to release music. Like, oh yeah, what a year for albums. 75. Yeah. They Toys in the Attic generally, in Aerosmith's perspective, I think that it charted, it was their third record. I think it charted 63 positions higher than Get Your Wings. And people thought Get Your Wings is a really good record, but they had been on tour, touring Wings for a whole year. So they came into the studio very confident musicians, better musicians, and Perry and Whitford came in with all these really cool riffs, just because they were so much more confident and so much better. But yeah, fantastic year. And you know what? I'll tell you, 75 to like 81. I've said this on the podcast a million times. Is one of my favorite by far periods of music, rock music. Like, think about all the bands that were alive and thriving at that time. Frampton, Cheap Trick, Blondie, Kiss, Van Halen, AC/DC, Aerosmith. Yeah. And how many of them recorded in the record plant, like where they recorded the album? Totally. I mean, that's got to be like, that is a great time period for albums, 100%. And to be working with Jack Douglas, was that the second? Did they work on Get Your Wings with him, or was that just, did they start on Toys in the Attics and I think the Toys in the Attics and Rocks? Did they do that? He produced Get Your Wings too. He did. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then they were doing Too Many Drugs, and he said, "See you later." That's right. I think he did. I'm not sure what happened after Rocks, but they changed management. Well, what happened was a guy named Frank Connolly used to manage them. And then he sold them to Lieber Krebs. This is a cool story. The reason why I'm telling you this is because you can hear this on the record. Oh, okay. So when you listen to, I think it's Sweet Emotion. So their management behind their back sold the contract to Lieber Krebs, a big management company. And Aerosmith was pissed because they had no idea. So they found out when they were recording Sweet Emotion, those that kind of bridge riff that goes da 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 da. So there's backwards hand claps you can hear if you're listening. You can hear something being played backwards. It's backwards hand claps, but it's also the band standing in a circle chanting "Fuck you, Frank." If you listen to the record backwards, you will hear that. Wow. Yeah. And if you listen to it forward, you can hear Tyler's voice going but if you literally spin the record backwards, you can hear them saying "Fuck you, Frank," chanting it. That's crazy. It's neat, eh? Yeah, man. Yeah. Just like, everybody's too scared of the record companies today, or management companies today. It's make or break with them these days. You never Never gonna have that, you know.
And that's the other thing. Think about in the 70s, the runs that bands went on. So, you know, Aerosmith's first record wasn't great in my opinion. It was a good start, but Get Your Wings, Toys in the Attic, Rocks. You know, some people don't like Draw the Line, but I love it. So 4 records in a row, like how many bands do that today?
Yeah.
Right? And 4 good quality records.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin did the same thing. Stones did the same thing. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It just, in the 70s, you could do stuff like that. Tom Petty did it.
What, like you said, what a time for that music to be coming out. Because like I don't know, I guess I'm not in the studios. I don't know what, like, you know, those contracts are like, but like how were those contracts or anything? Was that ever affecting how these bands were like, yeah, we got to put this stuff together, and you know, you don't have that kind of pressure today. I don't know, or was it?
I think
just
there's probably there's more pressure today. I think that you know, everything's front loaded, and I think that artists are told if you don't get it right the first time, you're out. So back then there was artist and repertoire, right? So it was like you'd sign what's called a development contract. So it was, you know, a 6 or 7 record deal, and your first 2 or 3 were expected to be lemons. So, you know, Def Leppard, On Through the Night, High and Dry, good records, but didn't do well. And then Pyromania. So right around your 3rd record was when you really kind of, you know, found your legs as artists. But today it's like if you don't do it right away, you know, forget it.
Yeah, and I think that's what was great about, like, in, you know, back then was they had that time, you know, like, and I feel like some of these bands, because they were so good, or because there was actually money in the record business for management, because management would screw over the artist all the time, but they would, you know, just in thinking about Tom Petty and when they were with their manager Denny Cordell, and he put them in the studio and he was like, you guys just figure it out, just play. And then there was another record producer that they gave him his house to stay in for, I don't know, I don't know how long, if it was months or weeks, and he had a studio in the basement, and it was like Petty and the guys that's how they would like learn recording, and they would just have these opportunities to figure out recording, to play together, to get better. But once the guy came back home, he was back into the motel and, you know, living the life of a broke musician. But having that time and that experience with the band and in that environment to write, no pressure. It's like, go ahead, do your thing. You know, how do you, like, do you have those opportunities? Are those opportunities that are present themselves at all today? You know,
I don't think so.
Right. You know, it's just a completely different, you know, world back then. And those are guys that didn't do anything else, like Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, like Bruce. Like, I don't think they did anything else but play music, you know? Yeah, man. So this was awesome. I mean, like, that was, I really enjoyed talking with you about that album and giving our takes on it, because I've learned more about that than anything I could read online about it. So
I am thrilled that you liked it, and I loved hearing your how you received it. Like, that sounds weird, but I just think that's so cool.
Do you have anything else for me? Do you have another album for me to check out? I
do.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest 2 things. So I was going to suggest, because we mentioned that run of Get Your Wings, Toys in the Attic, you know, Rocks, and Draw the Line, I was going to recommend that you listen to Get Your Wings, or Rocks, because it might be kind of fun. You're on a bit of an Aerosmith jag right now.
Let's do the Aerosmith trifecta.
Love it.
Well, thanks, man.
A lot of fun.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna listen to Get Your Wings.
Go now. Yeah. Run away.
I will see you back here next week with
you bet.
Get Your Wings. Thanks, man.
All right.
Later.
All right. Take care, man.
Bye.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye.